Welcome back to Midnight Curiosity. I'm Atlas, and tonight we journey through 5 of history's most perplexing mysteries. Some involve strange deaths with no explanation. Others involve lost civilizations and forgotten languages. Tonight, we'll sit with these unsolved questions together. Let them settle into the quiet spaces of our minds. Settle in. There's no rush. The mysteries have waited this long. They can wait a little longer while we listen. Chapter 1. The Lead Masks Case. It was September 1966. 2 young men lay dead on a hillside in the Niterói municipality near Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Their names were Marcelo da Silva and Miguel José Viana. They were not killed by violence. There was no blood, no signs of struggle. Instead, they were found lying peacefully, side by side, dressed in identical clothing. But the most striking detail, the one that would make this case unforgettable, was what covered their faces. Each man wore a lead mask, the kind used for radiation protection. Dense, sealed, made of heavy metal that would block light completely from the eyes. The investigation began, as these things do, with questions that had no obvious answers. What were 2 young men doing on that hillside? Why had they chosen to wear lead masks? In Marcelo's pocket, investigators found a simple note. It read in Portuguese, "Be at point of encounter." Another note, equally cryptic, instructed them to take certain medications before the meeting. Phenobarbital was mentioned, a medication used to calm the nervous system, to quiet the mind. The theories emerged slowly, each one more troubling than the last. Some suggested they were conducting an experiment of some kind, perhaps related to altered consciousness or sensory deprivation. The lead masks, in this interpretation, were meant to heighten some other sense while blocking out sight entirely. Others wondered if they had been involved in some kind of dangerous game or ritual that went tragically wrong. A few darker theories suggested they were involved in something occult, something that required the masks to shield their eyes from something. But from what? What could be so terrible that these young men would need protection from seeing it? The autopsy revealed almost no cause of death. There were no signs of poison in their systems beyond some minor traces of medication. There were no injuries. The lead masks had not suffocated them. Medical examiners were baffled. These 2 men simply died, peacefully, as if they had fallen asleep, as if they had been waiting for something that finally arrived. When I think about the lead masks case, I find myself wondering about the silence on that hillside, the weight of those masks pressing against their faces in the darkness, the careful instructions they left behind, as if they knew exactly what they were doing. Perhaps they were pursuing something we still don't understand. Perhaps they were waiting for something we still cannot name. Chapter 3. The Lost City of Z. It was the early 20th century, and the world still believed in the possibility of undiscovered civilizations hidden deep within unexplored wilderness. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, published a novel titled The Lost World, imagining prehistoric creatures thriving on a hidden plateau. But one man took this dream seriously. His name was Percy Fawcett, a British explorer and military officer who had spent years surveying the Amazon rainforest. And in the dense tangle of South American jungle, he became convinced that a great civilization lay hidden, waiting to be found. Fawcett called it the lost city of Z. He had gathered evidence from old Portuguese documents, from accounts given by indigenous peoples, from his own expeditions into remote areas where no Western explorer had ventured. He believed that somewhere in the Mato Grosso region of Brazil, an advanced city had once flourished. A city with architecture, with roads, with a population in the thousands. But then it had been swallowed by the jungle, consumed by time, erased from the maps of the known world. Fawcett became obsessed. He spent years planning an expedition to find it. He lectured about it. He wrote about it. He convinced others that the lost city of Z was not merely possible, but inevitable. In 1925, at the age of 58, Fawcett set out into the Amazon with his son Jack and a friend named Raleigh Reimel. He had gathered supplies, assembled his team, and prepared for what he believed would be the expedition of a lifetime. He told his wife he would return within 2 years. He left detailed instructions about what to do if he did not return, and then he disappeared. The 3 men walked into the jungle, and the jungle revealed nothing. No bodies were found. No messages came back. No traces of their camp were ever discovered. Decades of searching followed. Amateur explorers, professional archaeologists, government expeditions all ventured into the Mato Grosso, hoping to find some evidence of what happened to Fawcett and his companions. Some suggested they had been killed by indigenous tribes protecting their territory. Others believed they had simply lost their way, starved, or succumbed to disease. A few claimed that Fawcett had actually found the lost city of Z and lived there among its inhabitants, having finally achieved his lifelong dream. But evidence for these theories remained elusive. The jungle kept its secrets. What fascinates me most about the lost city of Z is how it represents our hunger to believe in hidden worlds. Fawcett was not a fool or a charlatan. He was an educated, accomplished explorer, and yet he became consumed by a vision, by the certainty that something magnificent waited to be discovered. The jungle defeated him, not through violence, but through silence, through the refusal to yield its secrets. Perhaps the lost city of Z exists. Perhaps it does not. But the search for it has become part of history itself, a monument to human determination and human obsession. Chapter 4. Heron of Alexandria's Inventions. In the 1st century of the Common Era, in the great library city of Alexandria, a man named Heron performed miracles of engineering that seemed to defy belief. He created devices that appeared to move of their own accord. He built machines that opened doors without human hands. He designed systems that could measure distance, calculate time, and transform simple forces into complex mechanical effects. And yet, despite his brilliance, despite the detailed descriptions he left behind in his writings, many of his greatest inventions fell into obscurity. The knowledge was lost. The machines disappeared. The principles that animated them were forgotten for centuries. Consider the Iolipile, one of Heron's most famous creations. It was a hollow sphere made of bronze, suspended over a fire. From the sphere, 2 small tubes curved outward at right angles. Water was poured into the sphere, and the fire heated it until the water transformed to steam. The steam escaped through those curved tubes, and the jets of steam caused the entire sphere to spin rapidly, faster and faster, like a turbine propelled by invisible force. To observers in that ancient world, it would have appeared as though the sphere possessed some inner spirit, some animating power. Heron understood the principle perfectly. He grasped the mechanics of steam and momentum. Yet this invention was dismissed as a curiosity, a toy, a philosophical demonstration rather than a practical tool. Heron's automata were equally remarkable. He designed and built theatrical machines that could perform entire stories without human assistance. Doors would open, revealing hidden chambers. Figures would move across the stage on their own. Water would flow in precise patterns, creating the illusion of divine intervention. These machines employed systems of weights, pulleys, gears, and water pressure, in combinations so ingenious that some of them were not fully understood until centuries later, when scholars finally reconstructed them based on Heron's writings. He had invented, in many ways, a primitive form of programming, a way to encode instructions into mechanical systems that would execute them automatically. The question that haunts historians and engineers is why these inventions were not developed further. Heron lived in a time of slavery and cheap labor. Perhaps mechanical innovation seemed unnecessary. Perhaps his reputation was simply lost after his death, and subsequent generations never knew what he had accomplished. The Roman Empire, for all its sophistication, did not pursue the technological path that Heron's work suggested. They did not develop steam power. They did not build factories filled with automated machines, and so the knowledge slipped away, buried in scrolls that few people read. It would not be until the Industrial Revolution, nearly 2,000 years later, that humanity finally began to explore the principles Heron had already discovered. What strikes me most profoundly about Heron of Alexandria's inventions is that we almost lost him entirely. We almost never knew what he had achieved. His words might have perished in the fires that consumed so many of the library's collections. And then, humanity would have needed to rediscover principles already discovered, would have needed to reinvent machines already invented. Heron reminds us that knowledge is fragile, that progress is not inevitable, that the greatest minds of an age may be forgotten completely if the thread of history is broken at just the right moment. Chapter 5. The Rongorongo Script. On Easter Island, one of the most remote places on Earth, a string of small wooden tablets was discovered in the 19th century. These tablets bore strange symbols, unlike any writing system known to exist elsewhere in the world. The symbols were called Rongorongo. This word meant chanting recitation in the Rapa Nui language, the native tongue of Easter Island. But what did the symbols represent? Could they be read? Could they be translated? Did they encode some message from an ancient civilization? No one could say with certainty. The tablets numbered fewer than 30, and many were fragments, broken and deteriorated by time and exposure to the elements. Each tablet showed symbols carved deeply into the wood, arranged in rows that seemed to progress across the surface in alternating directions. A reader beginning at the bottom left of one line would need to rotate the tablet and read from bottom right in the opposite direction for the next line. This Boustrophodon style of writing, reading alternately, left to right and right to left, had been used in some ancient Mediterranean writing systems but nowhere else documented in Polynesia. The symbols themselves were abstract and geometric, unlike the pictorial representations found in other Pacific Island cultures. Linguists and anthropologists attempted for decades to decipher the Rongorongo script. Some proposed that it represented a syllabary, like Japanese hiragana. Others suggested it was a logographic system, where each symbol represented an entire word or concept. A few researchers claim to have made progress, to have translated certain passages. These translations spoke of lunar cycles, of genealogies, of religious rituals, and navigational knowledge. But subsequent scholars questioned whether these translations were accurate or merely the result of confirmation bias and circular reasoning. Without a Rosetta Stone, without multiple examples of the script paired with known languages, true decipherment seemed impossible. The deeper mystery concerned the origins of the Rongorongo script itself. Had it developed independently on Easter Island, created by the Rapa Nui people to preserve their knowledge and stories? Or had it been imported from elsewhere, brought by ancient voyagers from across the Pacific? Theories proliferated. Some researchers suggested connections to Indus Valley script, or even ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, proposals that most mainstream scholars dismissed as pseudo-archaeology. The truth is that Easter Island's history remains largely mysterious. The giant statues, the moai, had been erected over many generations. But then something changed. Construction stopped. The society transformed. By the time European explorers arrived, the knowledge of how the moai had been built seemed to have vanished from cultural memory. The Rongorongo script feels like a message from a world we cannot fully access. The knowledge required to read it is gone. The people who carved these symbols have left no descendants who remember the meaning of their careful marks. We can study the tablets. We can photograph them, measure them, analyze their symbols. But they resist meaning. They guard their secrets with the patience of wood and stone. When I consider the Rongorongo script, I am struck by how knowledge can be preserved and yet remain utterly inaccessible. These tablets have survived for centuries. They have been found, cataloged, studied by brilliant minds, and still they will not speak to us. They remain silent, inscribed with mysteries that may never yield to translation. Perhaps that is their own kind of perfection, a monument not to what we know, but to all that remains unknown. 5 mysteries now rest between us and the night. 5 silences that history left behind. The lead masks over unseeing eyes, the nameless man and the cryptic message, the explorer swallowed by the jungle, the ancient engineer whose knowledge nearly perished, the wooden tablets carved with symbols no one living can read. Some of these mysteries may one day be solved. Archaeological expeditions continue in the Amazon. Scholars still attempt the Rongorongo decipherment. New evidence sometimes emerges about the historical cases that seemed closed, but others may remain mysteries forever, questions that time itself has rendered unanswerable. Either way, they are part of us now, part of our shared human inheritance of wonder and uncertainty. May they keep you company through the quiet hours ahead. Sleep well. This is Atlas, signing off.